Good evening, everyone. This is Thursday, June 9th, 2022, and this is the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association's Clean Energy Seminar. Tonight, we're going to have a presentation on geothermal energy presented by Larry Kaufman. He was the Executive Director of the Michigan Geothermal Energy Association. I'm your host, Mark Clevey. I'm Vice President and lifetime member of GLRA. Our financial sponsors for tonight include the Michigan Department of Environment and Great Lakes and Energy, or EGLE, McNaughton and McKay in Ann Arbor, and Harvest Solar. The Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, we were formed in 1991. We are a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit organization sponsored and supported by members to educate and advocate for renewable energy in Michigan. There are a number of ways that you can get involved with us and support the work that we're doing here. Yes. One, you can join a committee and participate in the work of a committee. You can help grow the membership by reviewing your membership or joining for the first time.
Yeah, are they sort of rounded?
And if you could, guys, put on your mute if you're not, please. You can encourage others to join GLRA, which increases the organization's reach and influence. You can also make a financial donation to GLRA to support our work. For information on those and other options available to you to participate, you can talk to our Executive Director, John Freeman. His email is below. Our GLRA Zoom programs go on every Thursday. First Thursday of each month is Ann Arbor Solar Stories, hosted by Julie Roth, who's the manager of Solarize Ann Arbor, doing case studies on meritorious projects in Ann Arbor. Second Thursday is myself doing the clean energy seminars. The third Thursday, we do a Detroit Solar Stories, again, looking at meritorious projects that are in Detroit. And on the fourth Thursday of each month, we do a Solar Stories and a Michigan Energy Q&A hosted by John Zarber, GLRA's secretary. The Clean Energy Seminars covers topics of interest to clean energy users, renewable energy businesses, and advocates. Our seminars include content ranging from technology to business to public policy. See, the Clean Energy Seminar started out as a Zoom event, and we people want us to keep doing it this way, so we do. It's from 7 to 8 o'clock p.m. Related questions, comments, and suggestions should be directed to me, and there's my email. We ask that you please remember to mute yourself. Also, that you hold all questions until the end of the presentation. You can raise your hand under the reaction section, and I'll call on you for your question. So I want to welcome you to this June seminar. Geothermal energy is a vitally important component of a zero-emission renewable energy strategy. Geothermal energy can ameliorate intermittency problems associated with wind and solar energy, eliminate emissions associated with frack gas and coal, and is eminently scalable. It can serve one building, multiple buildings, or entire communities. It's a cost-effective solution that is highly compatible with distributed solar. Larry Kaufman, our speaker tonight, extensive expertise and experience in renewable energy at the corporate and nonprofit level. Not only did he manage DTE's early energy renewable energy programs, but also served on the board of directors of the Michigan Interfaith Power and Light, along with myself. Since retiring from DTE Energy, Larry has served as the executive director of the Michigan Geothermal Energy Association. In 2021, GLRA granted MEGA, or the Michigan Geothermal Energy Association, an outstanding partnership award for their synergistic collaboration with us. Larry, I welcome you back to GLRA and the Clean Energy Seminar.
That's great. Thank you very much. I should probably go to my, and we should be all set, I hope.
All set.
Okay. How do I advance this? We'll figure it out. Anyway, first, I want to thank you for inviting me here as a wonderful introduction. For 17 years, I was the energy expert for DTE Energy. And Jerry Getz and I think, helped create the geothermal industry in Michigan. Let me back that up. When I started at DTE 27 years ago, DTE had a full-time staff on geothermal. They had 6 full-time salesmen, a full-time manager, a full-time administrator, and they were giving $5,000 a unit rebates. And in those days, they were selling less than 100 units a year. When I retired 17 years ago, We had no salesman, no rebates, no manager, no administrator. We were doing close to 1,000 units a year through our program. So we increased dramatically the geothermal. Now, the week I retired from DTE, I was elected I was the executive director of the Michigan Geothermal Energy Association. They wanted me because I didn't have any affiliation to one specific manufacturer or brand or anything. And I was involved in geothermal. Of course, it's been 10 years since I've been retired. This is the first presentation I've made and the first one on Zoom. And I used to be damn good at it, but I hope it's like riding a bicycle. So we'll see how it goes tonight. I don't know how to advance this.
Go down to the button and hit page down.
Okay,
There you
good.
go.
That will do it. So let's start with, why is geothermal attractive? And I should mention that this presentation, a lot of it is through Shepherd Advisors. We are working on a program with Eagle and Shepherd Advisors and Lawrence Tech to evaluate the whole geothermal industry along with solar and wind. And they put this presentation together. Mark Clevey contacted me about 2 or 3 weeks ago and said, how about doing a presentation on supply chain? And I thought, I know a lot about geothermal. I know very little about supply chain, but this presentation covered a lot of it. So therefore, I think we'll be all right. And we'll do what we can. And if not, I think Locke is on this call, so he can probably answer what I missed. But so why is geothermal attractive? I should mention also that I've had geothermal in my house probably 21 years now. We were the first home in West Bloomfield, Michigan to have solar. How do I know that? Because we went for a permit. They had no idea how to do it. They told us they'd never done it before. And I'm the second house in West Bloomfield to have geothermal. So I've had it a while. And I have a 2,700 square foot home with a 1,300 square foot basement. Average heating and cooling bills over this 21 years is about $70 a month. And you're probably saying, yeah, you keep it at 55. You haven't met my wife. My wife keeps it, I like it at 71. She likes it at 72. So therefore, we keep it at 72. The way our marriage works is very simple. I make all the big decisions. She makes all the small decisions. And in 36 years of marriage, we've never had a big decision. Amazing thing. Okay. Geothermal enables HVAC systems to leverage the earth. Geothermal, if you're not familiar, works like a refrigerator, except we have a big coil on the bottom that plugs into the ground. The ground is always a constant temperature. And by using the heat that's in the ground, which makes it sort of a version of solar, the sun heats the ground provides energy, and we tap that energy in the ground to heat and cool our house. The result is a geothermal system is about 5 times as efficient as a natural gas system for heating and twice as efficient for cooling. So it really makes a big difference. It's one system. It integrates heating and cooling into one unit. The unit has no open flame, which makes it safer. It doesn't produce carbon dioxide. So you have a health issue. You can put a geothermal system anywhere in the house. Could be in a basement, could be in a closet, could be in an attic. Don't need the ventilators you need in a gas system. And it's a great thing for utilities. That's the point that's really hard. Utilities, even in Michigan, are summer peaking, which means utilities need more energy in the summer and a hot day than in the winter. What does geothermal do? It creates extra usage in the winter time when they have excess capacity, and reduces, because a geothermal is twice as efficient as an air conditioner, it reduces the uses in the summer. And we all know the utilities are struggling this summer to keep enough energy on. If we had enough geothermal system, there is nothing they can do that would reduce their energy use load in the summer than more geothermal. Geothermal, your cooling system in the summer can be 60, 70% of your total electric bill. If you can cut that in half, it is an incredible benefit, because the utility on a hot 90-degree plus day, yes, I have faith we will have a 90-degree day this summer. I know it doesn't seem like it this week, but that's my prediction for the summer, at least a couple of 90-degree days. And the utility pays through the nose for the energy on those days. This would help them out tremendously and help keep costs down. And that's something we'll talk about later. eliminate the need for propane and fuel oil. If you're on your fuel oil, disconnect from the seminar and call a geothermal dealer right now. Any minute you're wasting time, you're wasting money, should not be on it. And we lower the overall carbon footprint. Okay, prove that. When I was at DTE, President Bob Buckler said, I don't believe the geothermal uses less carbon footprint because it's, we make all our energy from coal and a natural gas is a little cleaner. So he commissioned a full-time major study, and the study concluded that geothermal has less carbon footprint than natural gas. A full DTE full study, and that was before they started using wind and solar in their energy mix. Now that they're using a percentage of wind and solar, it's even more carbon friendly and reduces carbon footprint. Okay, so what's the good news about Michigan? We have 4 seasons. Yeah, I know, road construction and 4th of July. But we have 4 seasons, and that's really good for geothermal because it balances the heating and cooling. We have ample water. We have supply chain. I'll talk about supply chain things. We have adoption by green communities, thanks to groups like GLRA and Green Home Institute. Cities like Ann Arbor and Grand Rapids are very progressive. We have knowledgeable engineers. I work on a net zero committee with David Dye and Bowtie. God, I just suddenly lost his name. I'm in a meeting with him every time. One of the best architects in the state. So we have great things. We have great
Michael Clement.
Michael Clement. Thank you so much. Michael Clement is wonderful, and so we have really good people. We have great organizations, MEIBC and other things. So we have really good opportunities for geothermal. Why commercial industrial likes geothermal? Well, simple reason: we're more efficient and deliver less expensive cooling. Duh. I mean, what's you have more comfort, less carbon footprint, less cost. What's the downside? Downside is the upfront increased cost. And I'll talk about some of the things. Reduced operational HVAC costs, less equipment, less maintenance. Think about your refrigerator. Remember I said geothermal is like a refrigerator? How much maintenance do you do on your refrigerator? Almost nothing. I've had my new geothermal system in for 7 years, have not had a single maintenance issue. I changed the filters and that's about it. Reduce propane kits, increase comfort. Peak demand in summer. Again, we got to get our peak demand in summer. CFL LED bulbs, great. Energy efficiency, great. Attic insulation, wall insulation, all of these are great. The thing that's going to do the biggest thing, it's like they asked Willie Sutton, why do you rob banks? He said, that's where the money is. The biggest thing you can do to reduce your peak usage in the summer is convert to geothermal. And if we did that in sufficient numbers, we wouldn't need to build new plants and we would reduce our costs. So that's really the best way to go. Okay, what are our opportunities in Michigan? Well, there's lots of great things. We've had a number of schools go geothermal. We've had Capitol, we've had libraries, we have a Farmington Civic Center, whole complexes geothermal. Things are going, but the biggest problem, and I'll talk about this a little later, is that geothermal is invisible. You don't see it. You add a deck to your house, every friend, your neighbors all see it. You add a granite countertop, everyone can see that. You add geothermal, it's underground, no one sees it. But there's all kinds of things for educational government things, and I'll talk about things we can do with our legislator to include that. The issue is that a homeowner will say, I don't want to pay extra up front because I may not be in the house more than 3 or 4 or 5 years. But a library is going to be there 50 years. A government building is going to be there 50 years. A school is going to be there 50 years. They should be going geothermal because there will be a payback. There will be benefit. There will be an environmental impact. There will be a green benefit. Everything is right. And we know the building is going to be there. So it absolutely makes sense. And I'll talk about what other states have done about that. Recently, our Capitol building went geothermal. I was very involved at the very beginning. If you're really interested, you can do 2 things. If you go to Michigan Capitol Geothermal, you'll find an article I wrote for Country Lines magazine that went out to 300,000 people about that. Also, I have a song. I wrote a song with an accompaniment video to the tune of California Dreaming. about geothermal in Lansing going geothermal with sun all around the country. When St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York went it, I was commissioned by the National Geothermal League to write a song about it. I made a song, sent it all over the country to all the geothermal leaders. And some guy in Iowa made a video of it and showed it at these national conferences. So when Michigan Capitol went, I said, how could I not write the song and send it out with the video? It's nicely done. You can get it or email me or ask me, I'll send it to you. It's available. US 75 visitor centers. You go up Route 75, you stop at any, what are they called? Yes, service centers or rest stops. They're all geothermal. Did any of you know that? They're all geothermal. Do we put a sign telling people that? No. Why don't we put a sign that tells people we're going green? We've supported that. You see all these little solar things on street corners, all the things. The University of Michigan, Michigan State University, we have a meeting at Lansing Community College at the end of the month, a focus group. And the reason we picked that, it's all geothermal, Lansing Community College. So all these buildings are going it, but nobody knows it. We don't publicize it. I think it's one of our faults. Okay, other opportunities, subdivisions, makes sense. There was a town in tried a community solar program with their Melanie McCoy. And basically it's much cheaper if you put a universal line loop and connect everyone to it. Auto dealerships, La Fontaine is all geothermal and is promoting it. Hotels, office building, big box stores, multifamily data centers, dairies, medical power plants, mine. There's so many opportunities for geothermal, not just residential, commercial, and you know, and it benefits Michigan so much. Okay, supply chain. That's what I'm supposed to talk about. We have a very well qualified architects and engineers. I mentioned Michael, actually John mentioned Michael Clement and David Dye, GMB architects. We have heat pump manufacturers. We have qualified loop contractors. We have all the elements. We have a drill looper. Midwest Geothermal does work all over the Midwest. They did the Capitol. One of the vice presidents there is Courtney Lull. She's on our board. She's also the president of ICSPA, the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. So right in Michigan, we have the president of the National Association. We also have great relations with the National Geo Exchange. Ryan Dougherty is a great supporter and friend of our group. We have local supply houses like Johnstone Supply. We have funding operations through Michigan Saves. That does it. If you don't know Michigan Saves, look them up. They do great things for solar and geothermal. We promote favored electrical rates. Now, I got to talk a little about the rates. DTE has a special geothermal rate. It is the only geothermal rate in the country of an investor-owned utility. How do I know that? Well, I created it in 1995. And I didn't realize it was the only one in the country. 1995, I made that rate permanent or through regulatory. And about 4 years ago, New York State contacted me. They wanted to make their own geothermal rate. And they looked around the country and they found that we were the only ones who had it. And I was the one who created it. So they called me and asked me for advice and help. And I offered them some help and perspective and how to get their own. It's right now pending in their legislation to get their own geothermal rate. But I thought, wow, that's cool. I had no idea I was the only geothermal rate in the country. Now I'm going to pause for about a minute and I'm going to tell you a really bizarre story. Not only do we have a residential geothermal rate, we have a commercial geothermal rate. And how did we get the commercial geothermal rate? It's through a lady named Jane Bishara. Now you may have remembered Jane Bishara. She was the woman who was killed by her husband's handyman, and he was running a sex operation in his basement with mistresses, made national news for about 2 weeks. Very bizarre story. Jane was my boss. And she added a room to her house. And she said, what rate should I go on? And I looked at all the specifications and I said, you know, you qualify for the geothermal rate. It's 50% less than the regular rate. It's 30% less than the interruptible rate. It has no interruptions. So I put that through to regulatory. Regulatory called me the very next day. What the hell are you doing? That is not for that is not for air conditioning. That's for geothermal. I said, read the rate. According to the rate that you wrote, she qualifies everything. Yeah, we know she qualifies, but you can't be giving air conditioning people that rate. I said, I'll make you a deal. Give me a commercial rate and I won't put any more air conditioning people through. And they agreed. And that's how we have a commercial geothermal rate. Pretty bizarre story, but we have it. Now, consumers does not have a geothermal rate. And let me give you the difference in that. If you have a geothermal and consumers energy territory, you'll pay 20% more for gas and geothermal than you would based on current pricing. Now, what the future goals, I don't know. And you'll pay 50% less in air conditioning. If you're in DTE, you'll pay 20% less for heating and 70% less for cooling because of the special rate. So it's hard to make, I can't talk the whole Michigan. I need to know whether you're consumers or DTE to know what the payback, and you ask what the payback is going to be. You have to predict what the rates of electricity versus the rates of gas are going to be. You know, last year, electricity was up 10, 15%, gas was up 40, 45, propane up 40, 45. What is the next 20 years going to be? You have to make that kind of prediction, which is going to go up faster. So, and that changes the proportion because the geothermal is all electricity. So those are the things you have to make a thing. Geothermal does, consumers does have a rebate on heat pumps. DTE has now added a rebate on air source heat pumps. We talk about WellConnect. WellConnect is a really interesting company. They're in Alpena. They invented a portable geothermal system that can heat and cool up to about a 1,500 square foot house. And you can take it with you. It operates, it's for rural homes with a open loop system. But you can take it. I was there at the very first beginning with them. I went to visit them and they've been members ever since. And they've just, I saw them last year. They've now sold their 1,000th heat pump. So they really think it's a very unique little system, very different. We have a dealer in downtown Detroit, Kelvin Wells. You know, so Detroit has done something. I was involved in the first geothermal in McDonald's in Westland and Ford and Hicks Road. Had Ronald McDonald come out, and we did the and there was a McDonald's, identical McDonald's 4 miles away, and our McDonald's was 35% less in energy bills. Did the first Detroit project, Canfield Lofts, right across from the Traffic Jam restaurant. We put 32 lofts. We put geothermal into the parking lot. So things can be done, and we have training available. We also have great manufacturers, Enitech, Waterfirst, Climate Master. We have control systems with Mitsubishi, Bryant Train Carrier. We have pipe suppliers. We have 4 companies to produce the pipe. We have filler material from New York, bentonite from South Dakota. We have business models. We have EcoSmart Solutions. We have all this software that goes with it, training and certifications from ICSPA. If you were at our annual meeting, you heard the executive director there go through all the training that's available through ICSPA. And one of the issues that's always going to be a problem is getting personnel. Right now, finding labor and qualified people is always a challenge, and it's a great field to be in. Government predicts that geothermal will quadruple its size in the next 30 years. By 2050, they expect geothermal to be 4 to 5 times the size it is today. Here's a picture of a Capitol during the construction. I was like, you know, I didn't want a picture of the regular Capitol because I wanted to show the construction that we put geothermal in. We are only the 4th state in the country, 4th, that has a geothermal capital. They sent my song, by the way, about the geothermal capital in California. They sent it to the legislature and then said, if Michigan can have a geothermal capital, why can't we? They're renovating the capital this year. So it's nice that Michigan can show California how to go green. I mean, I think that's important. And the last year I was at DTE, my Green Currents program won the Department of Energy's Green Energy Program of the Year in North America out of 850 programs. So Ann Arbor was the greenest city in the country that year. So, for Michigan, we talk about Rust Belt. Here we are, only 4 states have a geothermal capital. We won the Green Energy Program of the Year. I think we should take pride that we can be green. We're not completely a Rust Belt state. Okay, geothermal sector is evolving. When I retired, air source heat pumps sucked. They were not for Michigan weather. Today, they've come up with a cold air air source heat pump that's pretty darn good. It's pretty good. Now, I was at a seminar for Green Home Institute, and the guy said, don't buy a geothermal. They're twice as expensive as an air source. I said, that doesn't sound right. So I researched it. The bottom line that I found was that a geothermal is about 20% more expensive than an air source heat pump, a cold, high quality cold air heat pump. However, a geo will last 22 years, an air source will last 15, and a geo will have lower operating costs. So over the lifetime of that unit, I still think geothermal is far and away the best. Am I upset about air source? No, I think it's, if you can't afford a geothermal for whether if you're in a city and need a vertical loop and it's too expensive, air source is your next best option. Again, I'm not upset about solar. People want to go solar. That's a great option too. You should do as many things. You should do energy efficiency. You should do geothermal. You should do solar. You should do it all. That's the best thing that you can do. No one can do everything. Everyone can do something. That's what you can do to reduce your carbon footprint and still be comfortable and still have quality heating and cooling at a lower price. Hybrid systems are available today. You can mix and match with everything, and baseload cooling and CAPEX. I said, what the heck is CAPEX? Capital expenditure. We use a term. So yeah, you can reduce your overall capital expenditure. You reduce your carbon footprint, and it's integrated with solar for tax credits. Now, nobody knows this, but in February of this year, the federal government passed a law. The Congress actually got something done and passed a law that said geothermal is now considered a renewable source. Now, Michigan also passed that law, but we don't know what it means. We're saying if we're renewable, we should have the same benefits as solar. And again, the tax credits are expiring. Who knows whether Congress will get their act together and renew them or expand them. There's a bill in Congress right now to expand it to back for 10 years and add commercial. Right now, commercial is a 10% tax credit. The bill would expand it to a 30% tax credit. That would be huge, would absolutely be huge. So if you can predict Congress, give me a call. It's above my pay grade. I will not make no predictions of what Congress will do except attack each other. Okay, geothermal is a hard sell. If you want to laugh, and everyone needs to laugh, geothermal created, all the manufacturers, amazing, the three major manufacturers got together and created an ad campaign called Geothermal for All. One word, geothermal for all. And what they have is they have a tree hugger, typical stereotype tree hugger. The shirt says, I'm with her, with the picture of the earth. He believes in global warming. He supports the earth. He thinks the world is going, and he wants to promote geothermal. And he goes to the country and meets farmers and all these people, salt of the earth people, all tell him that climate change is a myth and it's a hoax and they don't believe in it. And he does an audit and they shows them how much money they can save with geothermal. And basically the bottom line is geothermal, we can all agree on, whether you want to do it to reduce your carbon footprint and save the earth, or whether you want to do it to save money and have a better quality of life. And they're really funny ads. He says, how about if we share beverages? You can have a latte, I'll have a cold beverage. He says, can I hug you? He goes, no. They're really funny. Take a look at it, Geothermal for All. It's a really good, and we were one of the states chosen because of our relationship with the national organization. They're running in Michigan on the web, but you can go to the website, just go to Geothermal for All. It's worth, they're like a minute long or 2 minutes long, very funny. Okay, what are the problems? Lack of education and promotion. You can't see geothermal, out of sight, out of mind. The market is undereducated. Most people don't know what geothermal is. They see the initial cost that I'm not spending that up front. It's just the way people are. Builders. There are few architects, engineers, and contractors familiar, comfortable with geothermal. Builders don't want to do it because it's more work for them and they have to educate the customer and it takes longer and the customer gets all the benefit. I did a seminar once and a builder called me the next day and said, he started yelling at me. He says, why are you telling people you need more insulation in your walls? This guy, one of my customers, went to one of your seminars yesterday. Now he wants more insulation in your walls. He says, if it was up to me, I wouldn't put any. That's what we deal with in the world. Let's not put any insulation. Now, I was on the committee that set the building codes for 13 years, from 1996 to 2009. set the building codes. Michigan had the worst building code in the country. I don't know if any of you knew that. In 1994, the federal government passed the Model Energy Code. The builders in Michigan went to the state and said, people want the cheapest, crappiest, shittiest houses they can provide. And they've sued them, and the courts agreed, and we rescinded the Model Energy Code, the only state in the country to rescind the Model Energy Code. In its place, we put the MUEC, the Michigan Uniform Energy Code, 60% lower standards than the national code. And that's what we used until 2008. You needed more insulation in a roof in Florida than you needed in Michigan. It was crazy. Then in 2009, do you get the opinion I'm a troublemaker? If you haven't gotten that by now, let me give you another example. 2008, we adopt the IEEC. We go to the national standard. Hallelujah. We're now equivalent to the national standard of building codes. We've just increased our building code 60%. So what do they do in 2009? They reduced the level of the code. They went from an R49 attic to an R38. We called them up, Department of Energy, and said, we have a better code. Can't we keep it? They said, no, we don't have any auditors. So therefore, if you don't match our code exactly, you're not getting the $74 million money we promised you. If you remember, Michigan in 2009 was in dire financial state. We couldn't afford to give up 74 million bucks. So therefore, we all had to bite our tongues and reduce our code to R38 and other things to match the code. That winter, I go to the MIA conference in Chicago, Midwest Energy Efficiency Conference. They had the Assistant Secretary of Energy do a 45-minute presentation on how they do everything to increase the standards and raise the levels and and make it better efficiency. And they work with us entirely to do that. And then she took questions and answers. And they made the mistake of giving me the microphone. And I told that story how her department required the state of Michigan to lower their standards. I had about 20 people contact me as soon as I got off the stage. It caused a little bit of an issue, but that's what I'm there for. Funny thing, I haven't been invited back to that conference since, but that's okay. It just annoys me when they talk when they lie like that. They talk about they do everything, and then behind the scenes they tell us we have to lower our code. Okay, geothermals are complex engineers. Loops require training to install correctly.
Larry, you got about 15 minutes left.
Yeah, I have about
leave room for questions.
Yep, I have about 13 minutes of speech left, so we'll see. The geothermal systems are complex. And what is the best geothermal system, people? The one that's installed correctly. Same is true for furnaces and air conditioner. What is the best system? The one that's installed properly. Now, I've been waiting 10 years for this. I was banned from TV by DTE for telling this. How do most air conditioning size the units? Well, they stand across the street and they put a finger up. That's a 1-ton system that covers the house. That's a 2-ton system. That's a 3-ton system, and that's a 4-ton system. How many fingers it takes to cover the house is how they size. I did that once on TV, and I was told never to do that again. But I'm retired 10 years. Now I can say that. So you got to get it properly sized. You shouldn't guess. You should do a complete analysis. The best system is one that's sized properly. And most contractors don't do it. They just say, if you had a 4-ton system, I'm going to replace it with a 4-ton system, which means if it was wrong before, it'll be wrong again. One builder at a seminar said, he says, I put in 2,500 square foot houses, a 4-ton system. I've been putting it in for 30 years. We said, do you build the house the same way today that you built 30 years ago? He says, no, we build them so much better. We build them far more efficient. They said, then why are you putting in the same 4-ton system? Oh, never thought of that. So anyway, geothermal contractors are usually not included in the decision. Try to get everyone working on the same page, the same team. Make sure your system is installed the right size. Bigger isn't better, smaller isn't cheaper. Either way is not right. You want the best system is the one that's properly sized. Geothermal industry is focused on homes, not C&I. Sometimes people don't believe me. I tell people what my costs are. I should show you. I have a picture my heating bill. I had a $3.75 heating bill in September last year. About 2 years ago, I had a $4.12 energy bill from DTE. So I show that to people. They said they don't believe, but I have actual bills. Of course, I do have solar and I do have geothermal. Gas infrastructure is relative, not breaking down much in the state. Okay. High upfront cost. Geothermal costs more. Unquestionably, it costs more. But what is the cost? The cost is not for the unit. The cost is for the loop. The extra cost is for the loop. And if you, in the loop, some people are saying, why isn't a loop the same as a natural gas line? Why is the utility paying for the loop? It could be beneficial because when somebody moves, they don't take the loop out of the ground and take it with them. It could be, and if you somehow figured out how to deal with the loop, a geothermal would be the same way. And of course, 20 years from now, when you replace your geothermal, you don't need to replace the loop. The loop lasts 1,000 years. I have a slide that's coming up. It says the last 50. It lasts 1,000. I used to demonstrate that by saying, who was the King of England 1,000 years ago? The answer for all you, anyone know? Anyone know? See any raise hands? The King of England 1,028 years ago was Ethelred the Unready. Everyone knew that, right? Ethelred the Unready. Yeah. If he just had a better press agent, Ethelred the Ambitious, killed his parents when he was 10, took over. But the only one who knew that answer was my mom, but of course she voted for him. But loop, you don't have to ever replace. So when you replace your geothermal, your cost is no different than a regular system. And since we've been installing geos for about 20 or 30 years now, people are starting to get their second systems, which is a benefit. It's obviously more economical with new construction. It's better, it's cheaper if you're in a rural area where you can do different size things. Balancing of the loads is significant. And a lot of places going electrification. That's the buzzword today, electrification. People want to eliminate. I know Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids wants to eliminate fossil fuels. The only way to do that is geothermal. And if you want a net zero home, you really need solar and geothermal to go net zero. There's really no other way to do it. So this is the way to go. Geothermal's ROI goes down when electric rates go up. Again, what is the relationship of electric to gas going forward? I don't know, who knows? But I really see a problem with gasoline and natural gas going up even more than geothermal, which is going to make geothermal even more attractive. We got to find engineers. We got to find help. Getting help today is horrible. You have to, because DT has a separate rate, you need a separate meter. There's an additional cost to install the meter. That's one of the issues we have to overcome. You know, obviously the utility just doesn't want to eat it, but we would love for them to eat it. But it's going to benefit them in the long run. It may be worth them eating it. There was a utility in Texas, I'll get to that, that found it was cheaper to buy the loop, and they made more profit doing that way than installing gas lines, than drilling new gas lines. So those things, we need better concerns about aquifers and permitting. Public, if you want to put a loop in a public lake, it's a horrible procedure. I don't recommend it. And reviews are based on older. People don't adapt to what's new in the market. They think about old systems. You know, Lapeer 40 years ago used to put open loop systems, and they just ran the water over their waterways. And it was a terrible thing. We don't do that anymore. We lack of appropriate financing sources. People need to look at the long-term life cycle of the product, the whole thing. A geothermal is going to last 20 to 25 years, average 22. A natural gas furnace is 15. So you got to add that cost over the life cycle. A lower maintenance cost. People don't ever look at the maintenance cost. What does it cost to do the maintenance every year? It says loops 50 years, they last 100, 1,000 years. Either way, it's not your problems. They guarantee them for 50 years. It's not your problem. Boiler chillers, 25, cooling towers are expensive. Utilities, this is the biggest problem we have, fuel switching. Utilities in Michigan, the way the laws are written, is electric companies get benefits if they reduce electricity. Therefore, adding geothermal adds electricity. So they're penalized for switching to geothermal. Gas company doesn't want to switch to geothermal because they lose the entire account, goes entirely away. So both electric and gas utilities won't do fuel switching. They don't promote it. The Public Service Commission has been against it for years. They say, we don't promote fuel switching. Here's the funny story about that. On the east side of Michigan, people would go from consumers DTE. On the west side, they would go from DTE to consumers. So the two would balance out. So it's not hurting either utility. Now they say, we don't promote fuel switching, but we want you to go to an electric car from gasoline. Isn't that fuel switching? Isn't gasoline the ultimate fuel? That's okay, but we can't go from electricity to natural gas, only from gasoline to electricity. Okay, Michigan saves commercial terms are too limited, good for residential, not good. PACE is another financing term. It has too many layers. It's hard to put geothermal in a standard financing model. It makes it hard to scale, and people don't understand it and don't take all these things. Cost of slow adoption. Geothermal is taking off other places, New England, New York, New Jersey. Our gas infrastructure is deteriorating. The gas line extensions people don't want to do. They're very expensive. I think it would be cheaper for utility. A Texas utility proved it. It was cheaper to put in a geothermal line loop than it was to extend the gas line. And they called it free cooling. Canada, I heard a presentation from somebody in Vancouver and British Columbia. They said that in 2030, no more fossil fuels there. So they're saying, why would you want to put a gas furnace in when in 6 years you'll have to take it out? Makes sense. So some states are places are being very proactive and limiting it. Climate goals in Seattle, a lot of places have got electrification. A lot of places in New York State, they say no more fossil fuels. Ann Arbor, I know, has some initiatives in that as well. So we have capability. This pulls Michigan talent capability. People are going to go where the work is. So if they find more lucrative opportunities, because of these other opportunities, they're going to go there. We're not going to be able to get our work done in Michigan, and it's going to harm us. Slower adoption is the grid right now, we all know, is under strain. We're all afraid of blackouts. I know a lot of places like Texas, California can have blackouts this summer. We have more higher cost in Michigan. We're shutting down our coal plants. We're not building nuclear. We got to reduce, we got to figure out how to get more energy, whether, you know, in solar and wind. Wind is just not going to do it in the summer because wind doesn't blow in the summer. So that's not going to do it. And electric vehicles are going to further stress. We keep pushing more electric vehicles. That adds more electricity. And, you know, there's adoption of heat pumps. I said the cold air source heat pumps have come a long way. Don't want to badmouth them at all. They are really pretty good. And if you can't afford a geothermal because of the loop cost, your next best option is a cold air source heat pump. But make sure you get a good one. Michigan does get cold in the winter. You can't have a lousy one. Geothermal is grid friendly. It's going to reduce the overall cost of electricity. If you balance your load, that's the most ideal for a manufacturing plant. So right now, DT runs about 12,000 megawatts in the summer and 7,000 in the winter. Balancing that out is going to help DT manage costs and make us more efficient and lower our costs. Flatter, and it's going to reduce the peak demand and hopefully prevent us from buying energy at like $1,000, $2,000 a megawatt on these really hot summer days. So we got to encourage more architects and engineers. New construction, we got to promote what Michigan has, showcase Michigan projects, educate people, put signs at the rest stops, tell people these are geothermal, put signs on the universities and all these federal buildings that have gone geothermal, promote that our capital, we should be promoting the hell that our capital, we were 4 states, we're the environment, and we made the decision, we went geothermal. We are the green state. We're not the Rust Belt state anymore. We're the green state. Target K-12. There's a lot of schools that have gone. I did a seminar at Dakota High School in Macomb that was all geothermal. There's a lot of schools that have gone. In Ohio, they have a law that says if you're a school and you want to go geothermal, if you want to put in a new HVAC system, you have to go geothermal or explain to the state why you're not. In Illinois, the same is true for federal buildings. Why don't we do that? Why don't we have a law that says if you're a federal building or a school and you're putting in a new HVAC, you have to either put in geothermal or explain why you're not. Maybe there's a valid reason, but I think that the standard, the go-to should automatically be the default, should be geothermal. It's going to benefit Michigan. It's going to benefit the cost of the school. It's going to benefit taxes. It's going to benefit our carbon footprint. Everything makes sense. Why don't we require that? incentivize fuel switching. Again, you got to get out of that no fuel. You got to look at the BTUs, not just whether it's gas versus electric. Got to do, the customer is the one who gets screwed. The customer doesn't care. He wants the best product for his home, the lowest cost, the most efficient, the most comfort, the best environmental. They're not interested whether the utilities benefit of the bickering between all that stuff. Standardized permitting process would be used, modernized evaluations. Make sure we require engineers and drillers. In order for a customer to be a part of MGA, they have to be approved by our board of directors. We vet every one of our dealers and we stand behind them, and we will intercede if there's a problem between one of them and the thing. That's important. The worst thing is these fly-by-night people operate off the back of a truck and do a lousy job, or a plumber who does 2 jobs a year and says, sure, I can do it. And he gets in a problem, he doesn't know how to experience it. If you were going to a doctor, would you go to the doctor that did 100 operations a year or did 1 operation a year? Same thing. And we got to keep best practices. And I'm done. Did I keep in my time, Mark?
You did. You hit it on exactly. So it's perfect.
I told you I was damn good.
Stop your screen sharing. So just, there you go. Perfect. All right. So questions. I've seen quite a lot of stuff in the chat room. I know Janice Means had 3 or 4 questions. Janice, you want to start off with questions? I know she's there somewhere.
I'm there, sorry. Go ahead and read what I had already stated, Mark, if you would, please.
I'm not sure I could get to it, but I will try. I can't get to it.
We're just asking, Janice.
Just ask it, Janice. Yeah. You were asking, the first question was something about how many towers or something. All right. Anyone else got any questions? Raise your hand. Go down to reactions. Hit raise hand if you have a question.
I'm sorry, I was talking, but I was muted, so you couldn't hear me. Hey, Larry, good to see you. How many columns do you have for your home? 1 or 2?
I have 5 vertical loops, 120 feet down. We hit rock at that point, so we put 5.
You have 5.
5 loops, 120 feet.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a 4-ton system. There's 5 loops, 120 feet down. They connect 6 feet under the ground to a unit and go into my house through the basement.
Are those U-tubes that you used?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Because that's what there was when you did it. That was all there was, right, at the time?
Yeah, you do what you can at the time. I mean, if you wait for technology to improve, you'll never do it. But, I paid for it in about 5 years.
Great.
Every year I make a profit. Used to be better. I used to chart it when I was working. I kept really accurate records. Now I'm retired. I don't care.
I hear you. Do you have each column valved at the top?
I don't know. I know they're all connected. I know Michigan Energy Services did it. When I first did my first geothermal, I try to give everyone different. I had a Climate Master. I've gone to Hydron. I try to not favor any one dealer or manufacturer. I have one dealer that won't join my organization because they took a picture of my home and it was a competitive unit. But yeah, go ahead.
The architect, the university architect at Lawrence Tech called me, I guess it was a month or 2 ago, to say that they were disconnecting their geothermal system. They have, I can't remember, I know it's at least 88 columns. I think there's more than that they had, and they did not have a valve at the top of each column. They did have some leaking. They couldn't find where it was. It was too expensive to, have to dig it up to do that. So they have abandoned the system. So I just wanted to recommend that everybody put a valve at the top of each column to prevent that sort of problem. And I know it's expensive to do that at the start, but it certainly saves in the long run.
It's very rare to have leaking units. That's very, very rare, but it is what it is.
It happens. And my other comment was, as I recall, you had mentioned Texas putting in geothermal, and I know that geothermal works best when you have almost equal cooling needs as heating needs. How is that handled in Texas? And I realize they may have some slight differences depending where you are.
It was a cooperative. It wasn't a investor-owned utility. It was a cooperative. And they were looking at extending gas lines. So instead, they decided to make a community geothermal and put in loops. And they did a profit analysis. There's a report on it. Courtney Colo can send you, if you're interested, can send you the whole report on it. They found it was more profitable to put the geothermal and pay for the loops than it was to extend the gas lines.
But didn't they have overbaking of the system doing that?
Yeah, except in Michigan, we need far more for heating than we do for cooling. So in general, geothermal runs more efficient for cooling. So look, geothermals have been installed north of the Arctic Circle and 2 degrees from the equator. So they can be installed anywhere. It's just a matter of what efficiency and everything. But there's a lot of, I mean, Oklahoma State was one of the best geothermal areas. That's where IXPA was formerly located before they moved to Illinois. So it can be done. It's just, look, it's nice to have ideal. I have solar panels. They face east and west. Is that ideal? Absolutely not. I don't have a southern exposure. But if I wanted solar panels, I either do it or I don't do it. So I'd rather do it even if they're not as efficient.
So we got a few questions here. Let's go to Ken. Ken Winter, you want to go ahead, unmute and ask your question.
Thank you. So I'm coming to you from a condo community near Ann Arbor, which, by the way, was designed by Wayne Appleyard, who's also on the call. Hi, Wayne. And I have 2 questions. We are looking at, doing heat pumps of some sort as we slowly have to replace our gas furnaces. The research that we have done so far says that really geothermal is not an option for us.
Okay.
That's not a viable option. There's 2 kinds of applications we have. One is we have a 7,000 square foot common house, which at some point is going to need its HVAC replaced. And the other is we have a bunch of townhouse style residential buildings, each of which currently has its own gas furnace. And as I say, the research that I've done so far, which is basically on the web, has pretty much, in my mind, ruled out the idea of geothermal. But I came here tonight to see if there's any reason why I should rule it back in for those applications.
Are those properties contiguous and adjacent to each other?
Yes. Well,
so you wouldn't have any problem digging up people's yards.
So we have a 7,000 square foot common house or clubhouse, and then we have 9 residential buildings, each containing, 4 to 7 townhouses.
So let me give a few suggestions.
Yes.
And it may not be. Look, at geothermal may not be appropriate. It's not appropriate for everyone. But I would look at that company I mentioned called Well Connect. You can either get to them from our site, theearthcomfort.com, or just go to Well Connect. They're in Alpena. And they make it, it looked like from your screen, it said they do up to 1,500 square foot of size. And it seemed like that was in your bailiwick. And they
our residential units are sort of around 1,500,
They may be an interesting option for you, a portable geothermal that can heat and cool your house at a much less cost. I don't know if it may not be in Ann Arbor, it may need a well, and I'm not sure if that's something. The other option is that if you can get a group of people to go together and do a communal loop, that would be a really
ideal
option. If you can do like 6 or 8 or 10 units.
Right.
To put one loop in that served each of them with a split system that you each have control of your own heating and cooling. That would be a really interesting option for that kind of thing.
So let me follow up on that last point. So are you saying that, let's say we had 6 families all in one townhouse building that were cooperative and were willing to go together on a common system.
Correct.
would that involve drilling one hole in the ground and putting a
Yes.
bunch of pipes down?
You would put one loop. Now, whether it's vertical, horizontal, your dealer would have to determine that.
Yeah.
But it would be a common loop. And what the advantage of that is that normally all 6 wouldn't be using peak energy at the same time. So
Mhm.
there's efficiencies of scale that you
Yeah.
can build into
Right.
that. And efficiencies of scale in the drilling and sharing the cost of that. So that would that work? I don't know, but it may be worth investigating.
So
Yeah.
let me just follow up once more. So let's say we've got this townhouse with 6 units.
Yeah.
You're saying there would be one loop, even though they have 6 separate HVAC systems.
Yes.
Yes,
How do they, I don't know, what do you call it, share the heat or?
you'd have a thermostat and you'd have a split system and control of it. In a larger house, you can have a split system where you can control one side of the house and for the other side, similar type thing. Except your 9,000 square foot is divided into 6 different sectors or zones.
And
Okay.
you might want to talk with Julie Roth, because I know she
Yeah,
has been
We're
looking.
connected with her, yeah.
She runs the Solarize program. I know that she's been looking for a geothermal demonstration project as part of the Solarize project.
Okay,
I
yeah,
know this for a fact.
we're connected with Julie. So
So
I didn't
this-
know that was a source, yeah.
well, but if you could, bring the city in on this,
Yeah.
and because it's a larger system, there may be some benefits. There may be some third-party funding benefits as
Mhm.
well. Some that they would come in and set this thing up and then charge people a long-term contract. So I absolutely, you should look at this more.
Mark, can you say where we would research this third-party funding thing?
So I would start with, you have a condo association. Maybe we should talk about this offline, but the bottom line is if you had a condo association, the association could own the geothermal and rent it to everybody,
Oh, sure, right.
right? So that's the simple answer. But let's move to Dave Curtis. Dave, you got a question?
Yeah, I just wondered, is there a good way to find out geothermal installers
Yes,
to be sure
Yes.
that, to be
The
sure
best-
that you're not getting the fly-by-night type of?
yep, exactly. Very, very easy. Go to earthcomfort.com or just do a search for Michigan Geothermal Energy Association. If you put your zip code in, it will give you all of our approved dealers in your area based on, and you can set the limit to 10 miles, 50 miles, whatever you set it at. And everyone that's an MGA dealer has been vetted, and we stand behind them in the organization. That if you ever had a problem, we would intercede on your behalf and try to make a.
You can also go to Michigan Saves and geothermal contractors, and these are Michigan Saved approved.
We're frozen.
So I'll bet most of the people that Larry's talking about are Michigan Saved contractors too.
Thank you, got what I needed.
Right?
Where do you live, Dave?
I live in southern Livingston County, just across from Washtenaw.
Yeah, there's a couple in your area. I was going to mention one or two, but I better not. It's not my job to promote one over the other. Just find one in your zip code, and if you have a question, call me offline, and I'll give you what I know about each of them.
Okay.
So we got to check in here. Locke McCabe's on this call on our Zoom today. And Locke, I wonder if you would be willing to take a minute and talk about the geothermal study that you did, and maybe talk about, anything that you found that was particularly surprising, interesting among the geothermal industry that Larry didn't cover.
Well, thank you, Mark. Good evening, everyone. Locke McCabe. Larry, is it all right if I just share a surprise or two?
Of course.
Yeah, so just to back up a little bit, this is a project that I'm doing in conjunction with the Centropolis Accelerator, which is out of Lawrence Tech, being run by Dan Radomski, who used to be with Next Energy, who some of you may know.
Yeah.
And they received some funding from the Michigan Energy Office, the Eagle, last fall to look at opportunities to expand the market in the consumer and industrial space for solar, wind, and geothermal. And about a month ago, I think I made a presentation on the solar side. Well, the geothermal side, this is not an area that I was familiar with at all, but I will say that I am super excited about the opportunities for geothermal in commercial and industrial. To realize that the Michigan capital is gone geothermal, and once we start talking to practitioners in this space that are in the commercial and industrial side, and that's a little different than the residential. Both the systems and also the drilling processes and whatnot are geared a little differently for commercial and industrial than they are for residential. Or so I think I understand correctly, but when it comes to, in particular, looking at applications that have both heating and cooling loads, an example of this would be, for instance, a dairy where you have both heating and cooling needs simultaneously. Some examples were given of, say, a Lowe's with a nursery, where you have both heating and cooling needs in the same location. Manufacturing facilities that work with metals and generate a lot of heat, but you have to cool the space at the same time. These are applications where really using the earth as a thermal battery can be particularly efficient. And so we're actually, I put it in the chat here, we're having a forum at Lansing Community College West Campus, where they recently put in a geothermal system when they built that campus. And we're focused specifically on the commercial and industrial space and how to, basically how to increase the market in Michigan. And if any of you are in the commercial industrial arena or are focused on increasing geothermal in that space, please reach out to me and come, because we're going to be really focused. And this is part of the same project to help the state clarify its priorities as to how it increases commercial and industrial geothermal. So I was mostly just surprised at how big this opportunity potentially is. And geothermal, from my perspective, is a real sleeper of a technology that unfortunately, it's out of sight, out of mind. But I think as we start making it more known to more folks, and that you're going to start seeing a lot more geothermal popping up.
Outstanding. So LACA is going to come back this fall and do a clean energy seminar about that whole entire project. We've gotten teasers like tonight, and the one he did for us on solar a couple of months ago. So when that report is done and made available at the state, he's going to come and do a presentation for us on the whole study. So great. Larry, I want to thank you so much. It was great talk. And though this has been filmed and it's available on GLRA's website, YouTube site, so that, along with the past clean energy seminars, and I think all of the, if not all, most of the solar stories as well, is on this site as well. So we thank you very much. Keep swinging. I guess you can be a curmudgeon. That's good. That's just good.
Troublemakers.
Troublemakers are united. You bet. So I thank you so much. John Freeman, is there anything you would like to say before we close up?
Well, just my usual pitch. If people are not members of GLRA, we certainly encourage you to become a member to support our work of expanding renewable energy in Michigan, both geothermal and solar. And we're very honored to have Alan Waller as one of our board of directors, and he works for Water Furnace, a very good geothermal business in Michigan. So that's all I've got, Mark, and thanks to everybody for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much. See you guys again.